Imagine waking up every morning, not to go to an office, not to work on a computer, but to taste the king's food, just in case it's poisoned. Or imagine your full-time job being to wake people up by shooting dried peas at their windows. As strange as it sounds, these were real jobs that people were actually paid to do. Throughout history, humans have had some incredibly bizarre professions. Jobs so strange that today they almost sound completely made up. From professional mourners to royal butt wipers, history is full of occupations that will leave you wondering, how was this ever a real job? Today, we're exploring some of the strangest jobs in human history. And trust me, some of these will make your current job seem completely normal.
Welcome to Brain Fuel, your spot for mind-blowing stories and life-changing perspectives. Before we start, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a video. And hey, if you love these stories, smash that like button. We're aiming for 100 likes.
The groom of the stool. Let's start with one of the most unusual royal jobs ever created. In the courts of medieval England, there was an official position known as the groom of the stool. And yes, it was exactly what it sounds like. The groom of the stool had the responsibility of assisting the king while he used the bathroom. This included providing water, towels, and sometimes even helping clean the king afterward. It might sound humiliating, but surprisingly, this was one of the most powerful positions in the royal court. Why? Because the groom of the stool had something no one else had: private time with the king. While the king sat on his throne, well, the other throne, the groom often discussed politics, secrets, and royal matters. Over time, these men became some of the most trusted advisors in the kingdom. So, while the job may sound strange today, it was actually one of the most influential positions in England. The knocker-upper. Before alarm clocks existed, waking up for work was a serious problem. Factories in the 1800s started early, sometimes before sunrise. And if workers overslept, they could lose their jobs. So, cities in Britain created a very unusual profession. They hired people called knocker-uppers. A knocker-upper's job was simple: walk through neighborhoods early in the morning and wake people up. But they didn't knock on doors. Instead, they used long sticks or bamboo poles to tap on bedroom windows. Some even used pea shooters to fire dried peas at the glass. And they wouldn't leave until they saw the person actually wake up. Imagine paying someone whose only job is to make sure you get out of bed. Today, our phones do this job for free. The sin eater. Now we move to one of the darkest and strangest jobs in history. In parts of Europe during the Middle Ages, people believed that when someone died, their sins could still remain on their soul. To solve this problem, families hired someone known as a sin eater. At funerals, the sin eater would sit beside the body and eat food placed on the chest of the deceased. The belief was that the food absorbed the dead person's sins. By eating it, the sin eater was believed to take those sins onto themselves, allowing the soul of the deceased to enter heaven. But this job came with a terrible price. Sin eaters were often feared and rejected by society. People believed they carried the sins of the dead. So while they performed an important ritual, they were usually forced to live isolated lives on the edges of town. The royal food taster. Being a king in ancient times was dangerous. Poisoning was one of the most common ways rulers were assassinated. So many royal courts employed professional food tasters. Their job was simple, but incredibly risky. Before the king ate anything, the food taster had to eat it first. Then everyone waited. If the taster survived, the king could safely enjoy the meal. If not, well, the king at least knew the food was poisoned. Some food tasters were extremely loyal servants. Others were prisoners forced into the role. Either way, every meal came with the same terrifying question. Would this be their last bite? The leech collector. Before modern medicine, doctors used a strange method called bloodletting. They believed many illnesses were caused by too much blood in the body. To treat patients, doctors used leeches, small, blood-sucking worms. But someone had to collect them. Enter the leech collector. These workers would walk into muddy ponds and marshes, often barefoot, and wait for leeches to attach themselves to their legs. Once enough leeches had latched on, they would pull them off and store them in jars to sell to doctors. The job was uncomfortable, painful, and sometimes dangerous. But during the 19th century, leeches were so popular in medicine that collectors could make a decent living doing it. The human alarm clock. Believe it or not, the knocker-upper wasn't the only strange waking profession. In some wealthy households, families hired human alarm clocks. Their entire job was to wake the family every morning, but unlike knocker-uppers, they lived inside the house. They would gently wake the family, open curtains, prepare morning clothes, and sometimes even begin breakfast preparations. This role was especially common among Victorian aristocrats, who expected every detail of their day to be handled by servants. Imagine someone whose entire career is simply making sure you start your day on time. The professional mourner. Grief has always been part of human culture. But in many ancient societies, families hired people whose job was to cry at funerals. These people were known as professional mourners. They would attend funerals and loudly cry, wail, and express grief. The more dramatic the mourning, the more it showed the importance of the person who had died. This practice existed in places like ancient Egypt, China, Rome, the Middle East. Some mourners were so skilled at crying that they became highly sought after. In fact, in certain cultures, the number of mourners at a funeral showed how respected the deceased was. So the louder the crying, the greater the honor. The rat catchers. Cities in the past were filled with rats, and rats weren't just annoying. They spread deadly diseases like the Black Death. So towns hired specialists known as rat catchers. Their job was to hunt, trap, and eliminate rats from cities. Some rat catchers used traps. Others used specially trained dogs. But the most famous rat catchers actually captured rats alive and sold them for entertainment events where dogs competed to see how many rats they could kill in a pit. It was brutal, but extremely popular in the 1800s. Rat catchers became local celebrities in some areas, and the best ones could earn a surprising amount of money. The resurrectionist. One of the creepiest jobs in history appeared in the 18th and 19th centuries. Medical schools needed bodies to study human anatomy, but there weren't enough legal corpses available. So some people turned to a disturbing profession, grave robbing. These workers were known as resurrectionists. At night, they would sneak into cemeteries, dig up recently buried bodies, and sell them to medical schools. Because the bodies were used for scientific research, doctors were often willing to pay a lot of money. As you might imagine, the public was horrified when they discovered this was happening. Some families even hired guards to watch over graves. Eventually, new laws were created to provide bodies legally for medical study. And the strange career of the resurrectionist slowly disappeared the jester. Finally, one of the most famous strange jobs in history, the court jester. Jesters were entertainers who worked for kings and nobles. Their job was to make the royal court laugh. But they did more than just tell jokes. Jesters performed comedy music, magic tricks, storytelling satire. Some jesters were so clever that they could even mock the king without punishment. In fact, many historians believe jesters sometimes used humor to criticize politics and give honest advice that others were too afraid to say. In a way, they were the stand-up comedians of the medieval world. Looking back at these jobs, it's easy to laugh at how strange they seem today. But every one of these professions existed because people needed solutions to the problems of their time. Before alarm clocks, someone had to wake workers. Before modern medicine, someone had to gather leeches. Before forensic science, someone had to protect kings from poison. History is full of strange ideas, and even stranger jobs. And who knows? Hundreds of years from now, people might look at our jobs today and think they're just as bizarre. Which of these strange jobs surprised you the most? Would you rather be a knocker-upper, a royal food taster, or a professional mourner? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy learning about the weird and fascinating parts of history, make sure to subscribe for more videos just like this. Because history is often stranger than fiction.